something actually I think Zia will be discussing later on in the talk. So when I really encountered whirling was when I went to Turkey a few years ago. Like any good tourist, I did my research, figure out what I needed to see. And one of the things was a Sufi performance, which we then went for. One thing that I think the performance really left an impression on me is the way they turn. Unlike, let's say, a Kathak, where the turning happens almost like the head and the body at different times and different tempos, in the case of whirling, it's a smooth movement. The head moves along with the body. In fact, at times, the whirlers even have their eyes closed. The other thing that occurred to me was, the performance must have been about an hour, maybe hour and a half. And throughout that, the whirlers had at least one arm raised. And I remember thinking, wow, that must have been superhuman upper arm strength. This was a myth that actually got busted for me when I whirled for the first time with Zia, which was a few years later. What was amazing about that experience is it was a 2-hour workshop, and within those 2 hours, I was able to whirl. So it's not like I needed years of practice to be able to whirl. It felt very natural. It was almost like, the closest example I can think of is if you're a swimmer or a cyclist and you have stopped swimming for a while, and then after a few years get back into the pool, swimming comes naturally to the body. The whirling really felt the same way. I'd never had any experience before, but it really felt the same way, that it was almost like it was a natural movement for the body. The other thing about the arms was it doesn't take strength. For some reason, the whirling kind of supports the arms, and you can keep them up for even an hour without any pain. Sorry, Naveen, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear.
Yeah. Okay.
Zia is back online now. I think she's been having some connectivity issue, but she's there now with us.
So that's about the whirling. Like I said, the myth about superarm strength or lots of physical strength, none of that is true. The whirling itself supports the person. And in this workshop was the first time I heard of or experienced the Gurdjieff movements. As part of preparation for whirling, Zia kind of introduced us to a part of one of the movements, and this was only to center us. Or it was only once you're centered can you whirl, and it was an incredible experience. This was the first time I think I personally was able to get into a place of there's this sweet spot between focus on one particular issue as well as general awareness and relaxedness. I don't know about the rest of you, but very often when I'm focused on one thing, I notice that I almost get tunnel vision. Plus, I think sometimes with the way we have been living our lives, we kind of think of focus and stress as going hand in hand. The sense of ease, the state of flow kind of eludes us in that phase. What the Gurdjieff movements do for me is that they allow me to be in the state of flow. Which, across the board, now they're talking about how it's this state of flow that really gets the very best out of all of us. As someone who looks at it in a practical perspective, the Gurdjieff movements have really been a wonderful tool for me to learn how to learn. They kind of, because of the number of variables you have to deal with, your mind's chatter really shuts down and you're able to be in the present and completely available. So now that we have Zia back on, and I'm sure you are all waiting to hear from her, I'm going to turn this over to her. Hi, Zia.
Hi, Riti. Thank you. Thanks for being part of this conversation. I'm really actually happy to have Riti part of this because she comes from a very personal experience in the work, and to converse with her will just bring out and highlight the deeper and the various nuances of the work. So thanks, Riti. I also want to quickly say before we go ahead, I'm so delighted and so surprised to see Fali here. Fali is an old friend. Where we have the fondest memories and the bond of the ocean with our scuba diving days. So happy birthday, Fali, and such a lovely surprise to see you here.
Zia, before you start talking about the Gurdjieff movements in particular, I thought maybe you could introduce why these dances, the movements in the whirling, are called sacred dances. What makes the dance sacred? What is their purpose?
Okay, so I'm going to, this sacred, it's called sacred because of the inner experience that the dancer, the practitioner of the work will have. And it's a great question. I can answer like a bit of it now, but Viti, let's hold it together and let's remember to bring it back a little later when we've seen some video, we've talked about the work and everyone can have some kind of experiential relation to the essence of the work. But in short and in a very theoretical way, when we do any kind of movement with deep awareness, automatically there is a grace that comes in. And that could be something like washing dishes, sweeping, swapping, dusting, making your bed. It could be anything that involves the body. But when we bring that kind of deep awareness, the awareness of that work is coming from inside, and there is no past or future thoughts. The mind is not available with the thoughts. There is only the presence of the body. Naturally, a grace comes, and that movement starts to look graceful like a dance. And sorry?
Yeah, I think everyone's talking in the background, but yeah.
Okay, fine. Sorry. So this grace makes the work sacred. It's a beautiful experience inside of oneness, of connectedness, of beingness, that to just be here now is such a deep experience of inner beauty that the work becomes sacred. And we bring the same principle into the movements. They are actually centering movements, but so much grace comes into the movement that it becomes a sacred dance. Okay, that's a progression of the work. So thanks for that question.
Will you now take us through the Gurdjieff movements?
Right, okay. So talking about Gurdjieff, it's a really beautiful story that he has. He was born in Armenia and very close to the mountainous region of Armenia, and his father was religiously, spiritually inclined. They were part of a tribe, and the tribal people themselves were very mystical and spiritually inclined as part of their tribal heritage. So he already had that influence in his life. And coming from the mountains always bring a special energy. But since a boy, Gurdjieff was always seeking in the realm of spirituality and mysticism. He wanted answers to why, the very cliched questions of who am I, why am I here, what does this mean? But, religious answers and textbook answers weren't enough for him. He needed to have a very personal experience of it. And he was very scientifically oriented. He was very intelligent, intellectual. He studied a lot. And his seeking took him all the way into Africa, Egypt, all across Central Asia, Tibet, and India. He was on a seeking of a spiritual journey. Like one seeking journey took him to another spiritual master, which took him to another spiritual master. He dipped into sacred music. He dipped into Pythagoras theorem, sacred maths, archaeology. He just was so hungry for knowledge and the quest for the meaning of this world and experiencing the inner being. He kind of didn't want to leave any stone unturned. He met some really amazing people on his journey, and then he, towards the later part of his life, he when he did arrive many years after he found his enlightenment and created his school and everything, he wrote his autobiography in a book called Meetings with Remarkable Men. And that was made into a movie by Peter Brooks. And an excerpt of that movie I'll be showing you. But that book is really about all the people that he met in his spiritual quest, in his journey across all these different regions and lands. And when I read that book, those men were truly, really eye-opening and remarkable. I think it is so fortunate for a man to be able to meet so many remarkable people that influence, touch, and condition the way you live your life. And one very interesting thing that happened to him was, now he started to get inclined towards the Sufi philosophy. And Sufis are, historically, if you go to see, they are very ancient. They are also pre-Islamic. And when Islam came into the regions of the Sufis were also travelers, they were dervishes, but they really worshipped the elements. They found God in a tree, in the river, in the forest, in the animals. They were very much at the level of the heart. They really lived their life. Their gateway and connection to the divine was through the heart, not through intellectual understanding. So for them, it was really clear that the divine is in me as well as the divine is outside. There was an experience of a unified divine sense, not so much like one God and one identity. And when Islam came into the picture, Sufism became the mystical arm of Islam. So, but they were still carrying all their principles from the heart space. So the Sufis will of course offer their grace to Allah, but really, if you look at all the Sufi songs, it always is talking about the beloved, and the beloved is a very feminine experience of Mother Nature. So the beloved is really being referred to as the night sky, the stars, the moon, the beauty of a sunrise, the beauty of a sunset. All Sufi poems have this. They're always referring to the beloved, and the beloved is not one identity, it's a divine experience. So he was very pulled towards the Sufi work. And he kept traveling to all these places. It was in the middle of World War I, then there was a shift happening, then World War II would happen, and his travels continued for 15 years. And he kept bumping into these beautiful Sufi brothers who were from the Sarmoon Brotherhood. And every time they would meet him just accidentally, not by design, but by accidentally, at the railway station, on the street, in another city. And they asked him, "So, Mr. Guljev, how are you doing? How's your search? Have you found it?" And Guljev would be very disappointed and say, "No, I have not found. I'm still looking. I'm still frustrated. I found this answer, but I still have this question." And he was very mental about it. It was a very intellectual process. And then the brothers said, "We are fed up of meeting you and you not finding it. So we want to offer you a journey. But the journey is a secret journey. We will take you somewhere. We cannot tell you where it is. We cannot tell you the name of the place. But if you want to surrender in trust, and we guarantee you that you will find what you're looking for, but you have to come with blind trust. We will blindfold you, take you on horseback, and it's a week's journey into the mountains." Now, Gurjev had reached the end of his road with the seeking, and he was like, "Of course, I'll try it." He was so thirsty and so desperate to finally get it. And here, this is the first time he's meeting some people who are asking for blind trust but promising something. So he went for it. He was taken on horseback and blindfolded on a very rocky journey through the deep into the Caucasus Mountains. And then a week later, when he entered the temples, he was just mystified at what he saw. He was greeted by the high priest, who then showed him around, and he was introduced to the work. The integral work in the temple was exercises, body movements, and sacred dance. And Guljev was like, "What is the meaning of this dance?" And he was taken from room to room and hall to hall as a tour to show what the people did. He said, and the priest told him that this is coming from many hundred years. It originated in the 12th, 13th century. It's not clear. And there were high priests and priestesses, and dance and movement had, it was a language which could be decoded. All these sacred truths, which were beautiful, divine, profound experiences inside a person, was transferred into dance and movements. And that's how it was passed on from generation to generation, so that the truth could not be lost in translation from language to language. You see, the body is universal. If you are asked to hold a gesture which is like this, for example, or like this, for example, or a gesture like this is universal. Every human being, no matter what race, what caste, what class, what the background is, for them, this gesture is universal. This cannot be lost in translation. The other beautiful thing about this work is that it's experiential. So it's not telling you that this gesture means XYZ, or this gesture means, 1, 2, 3. What it's telling you is, look at the experience in your body as your body aligns and shifts to a universal, unified space inside. And that experience is the symbolism of this gesture. So the work becomes universal. At the same time, it becomes personal. It's experiential. I'm not depending on what somebody's theory is. I'm directly experiencing this work, this sacredness inside my body. And that's the beauty and the symbolism of sacred dance. So they gave a lot of importance to the body, the posture. They understood that the body is an instrument of evolving consciousness. This human body is designed not only for physical activity, emotional relationships, or mental processing. It is designed for something more. That's why we have spirituality, we have mysticism. We don't see animals having spirituality and mysticism or worshiping God and things like that. Humans have it because our human design is made for something more, and that design is in our body. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit more after we see the video. But you will also have a clearer experience of what the body can do. It's very similar to what we have in our Indian, as part of our Indian spirituality and our Indian heritage. We have yoga, and yoga means union. It is a union of all different facets of our existence, yeah, which is our intellectual facet, our emotional facet, physical facet, spiritual, religious, all facets. When they all come together in a unified whole and in an alignment, we are in a space of yoga, that is union. And in order to do that, we're using the body. We're using the body to move into asanas, move from asana to asana in awareness, attention inside, presence on the presence of our own being, moving away from the outside world, centering inward as we move deeper into the practice. So this is not the Gurja sacred dance that comes from the Sufi Sarmang Brotherhood, from that origin, is not very different from yoga in its principle and its understanding. The outer form may be a little different, but principally it's not so different. It recognizes, just like yoga recognizes, that when we work with our body, we open the channels and the gateway that connects us with the universal consciousness. And then not only are we looking at the wholeness of this being, we're looking at the undifferentiated, unified connection of the individual with the universal. It's like from Atma to Brahma. There is no differentiation at that space. So I'm going to show you an excerpt of, and fingers crossed that my network stays stable during this video. It's a 9-minute video. Peter Brooks is the filmmaker for this movie made on Gurdjieff's autobiography, Meetings with Remarkable Men. Now the end, you can find it easily on YouTube. The end of the movie shows the dances as close as they could get it to how it originally was in the temples in the Caucasus Mountains. These are secret esoteric temples. Gurdjieff spent 2 years in these temples and he found his enlightenment. And the high priest in the temple told him it was a time during the Second World War and things were changing. You know, the geographical boundaries of countries were changing very rapidly. They had kept the temple secret for the purpose of protection, that they are protected from political and religious wars so that the work can be sustained. But now they knew that the temples and the whole geographical area is under threat. They didn't know how much they could sustain the work. So they asked Gurdjieff to please take this work with him into the world outside, never to give where the temples were, never to give that information away. In fact, when they sent him off, they again blindfolded him and sent him on horseback. So even though he got all that work to us today, he can never tell us geographically where these temples were. And we just have to respect and honor that. Then Gurdjieff came back into Russia during the Russian Revolution. From there, he was there for a few years. He started his school. He took a few of his pupils and escaped the Russian Revolution, went to Paris. There he founded his organization. And from there, he moved on and expanded into America, into New York. And the Gurdjieff Foundation expanded. And while there is a lot of work that Gurdjieff did with music and also with intellectual theories, he had Thomas the Hartman as his music composer. Each Gurdjieff dance that you see has music that is made for that dance. We cannot change it. We cannot use other music and put another dance. They choreograph for each other. So Gurdjieff and Thomas the Hartman composed the music. Gurdjieff created some more dances based on the same principles. That's why he gives it his name, Gurdjieff movement dances, while some dances come originally from the temple. So students who learn it will, they are informed what exactly they're learning. And maybe some of you have heard of P.D. Ouspensky. He was a very close friend of Gurdjieff, and he wrote many books that were also based on his learnings with Gurdjieff. In Search of the Miraculous is one of his most famous books, where you will learn about all the inner work and bringing sacredness, mysticism, spirituality into the body. And that is really beautifully expressed in P.D. Ouspensky's book, In Search of the Miraculous. So with all that introduction, I hope you will enjoy this video, and fingers crossed that the video streams well. I do understand that, everyone's connection may be different at different points. If you see the video kind of breaking or lapsing, just hang in there, go into your own body, breathe, stay present with that pause between your two breaths, and maybe the video will stream on smoothly. Okay? Okay.
Everyone in the monastery learns the alphabet of these movements. They are exactly like books. We can read in them truths placed there many thousands of years ago.
I understand. What is the real meaning of these movements?
They tell us of two qualities of energy moving without interruption through the body. As long as the dancer can keep in balance these two energies, he has a force that nothing else can give.
Affirming. Denying. Reconciling. Affirming. Denying. Reconciling. Affirming. Denying. Reconciling.
This morning I was called to the Patriarch. He told me that I have only 3 years to live and advised me to spend them in the Ulman Monastery on the northern slopes of the Himalayas in order to accomplish what I have dreamed of all my life. He said he would arrange everything to make my stay there productive. I agreed to set out at once.
Oh, God. Is it true?
Yes. There is no better way to finish my life. Perhaps I shall be able to make up for all the years I lost senselessly. which the desire of your heart can become the reality of your being. Stay here until you acquire a force in you that nothing can destroy. Then you will need to go back into life, and there you will measure yourself constantly with forces which will show you your place.
Well, at least the network held. Can't hear you, Zia. Zia, you're muted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi. Hello.
Yeah, at least the network held.
Great. Okay, so just with reference to the video, the dancers that you saw in the video are all disciples of Gurudev, who have been in the practice for more than 8 to 10 years, really deepening their the practice and the work, developing the precision of the movements as you saw. And there is a deeper meaning to getting into that level of precision. We start to crystallize our awareness of our body and all the facets of our existence that's there living in this physical body. When that starts to crystallize so in such a refined way, something opens up, and you become connected with that which is with forces that are outside of your body, forces that are creative, forces that are forming, forces that are universal, as the high priest was explaining to Gurudev right at the end. And here I want to explain to you the really the crux and the principle of this work. And it's not only relevant with the Gurudev work, it's actually very universal. The Gurudev explained that we have three forces of energy that enliven us, that keep us alive, that vitalize us and keep us living in this world. One is the physical energy, which is vitalizing our body, our physical body. The other is emotional energy, which is also popularly known as the heart space. And we all recognize as a heart space in this area because the heart is here, but for other reasons also, which I will explain to you at the end of the presentation. And then there is the intellectual space. That's another force of energy that really vitalizes our mind for thinking, processing, logical deductions, things like that. Education, all of it. And all of us have a tendency to be dominant in one of these energies. So where intellectual people will become accountants, lawyers, they will be scientists, physicists, biologists, because that's their dominant energy. And then they're not so much tuned into their body or their emotional space. And poets and creative people, dancers, painters, actors, they're all very much in their heart space. That's where the creative energy is. So they often you'll see, creative people don't really use their logic so much because their energy is all in creativity and artistry. And then we have gymnasts and athletes and runners, and their energy is in their body. So depending on how the energy is balanced in us, between these three forces, we are living our life. Now, Gurudev said, if we live our life and our practice in such a way that all these three energies come into equilibrium, come into an alignment where at any given point of time, I am in equal consideration of my physical, emotional, and mental energy in equal measure, then the fourth dimension opens up. So if I'm sitting here, like in the dances, we need to be so present in our mind to know what is happening in the choreography, to stay present with the count, with the rhythm, knowing, as you saw, the group dances, knowing where the dancer has to go as the dance keeps progressing. They cannot lose their mind. It's not like, I'm just going to do a free dance. And they really have to be mentally present. They have to be physically present with the body. There is music involved, so it gives them an emotional space, an emotional centering of the quality of this dance, the devotion that is there in this dance. So in the dance, they are in equilibrium with their physical, emotional, and intellectual forces in the body. And that's when the fourth dimension opens up. In Sufism, this fourth dimension is called marifat, which means the divine. You connect with the cosmic um, with the cosmic experience which becomes divine. In Upanishads, it's called Turiya, which means that which is, the isness of life. In Zen, it's an exclamation. It is, ah, this, that this divinity has always been here, right here where I am. I don't have to go far away. It's right here in this body. In yoga, it's called Rajas Yoga. In yoga, there are again three sources of energy. The karma yoga, which is people who are very much physically involved. Bhakti yoga, which is the path of devotion. And there is Gyan yoga, which is part of intellect. And then there's a Rajas yoga. When you come into an equilibrium of all these three yogas, the Rajas yoga opens up. So in yoga, this fourth dimension is called Rajas yoga. In Christianity, it's called what Jesus called the kingdom of God. So this is a very universal principle all over the world, where they understand that the energy sources in us are three-part, and when it comes into a unified equilibrium, the fourth dimension opens up. So I think, Preeti, with that, we can move ahead from Guljev into something else. Ask or inquire.
I think in the talk you've used words like physical, spiritual, mystical. Are they different? Is mystical different from spiritual? Where does religion factor into that? Because when I think about mystical or spiritual, I think of them as one. But you seem to have used them almost as if they're different.
Yeah. So again, we have again the three centers. The physical, and our physical life, when we are atheists, for example, we're involved in the world. It's a worldly consciousness. We're involved with our work, with earning money, taking care of our family, taking care of our body. We have cars and bank accounts, and this is the worldly dimension. Then some people may have a deeper longing for belonging or connecting with something else. And then there's a religious dimension where we place all of our, cause of our existence onto one identification, that is God. And then there are so many gods and so many religious theories around it. When we align with a religion, it gives us a sense of belonging, that we belong to this religious community. But it's all, all the involvement is outside of us, with a God that is outside, a religion that is telling us how to be. And then when we become more intellectual about it, it becomes all about ourselves. It's about Atma. What is this individuality? What is this body? What is keeping me alive? What is making me breathe? So the spirituality is all about knowing myself in this world. The attention comes in. When the attention comes in, we start to recognize intellectually and experientially the equilibrium of the different forces of any body, because that's what spirituality is about. Religiousness is about donations and charity and all that, but spirituality is really about turning inwards, recognizing where am I, who am I in the vastness of this universe. Mysticism is beyond religion and spirituality. It's where all the questions drop, the mind drops, and if there are no questions, there are no answers. That's why mysticism is referred to as the beyond. It's the beyond of the beyond. When we enter that mystical realm, then that seeking and questions about who am I, where am I, which God do I belong to, which community, which society do I belong to, all of this drops, all identification drops. We just enter the beyond, and it's like we take a drop of water that has identity as a drop. We drop it into the ocean and it becomes the ocean. Now there is no drop, there is only the ocean. The drop has become the ocean, the drop has gone into the beyond. There is no boundary or identification. When we move into that experience, it's called mysticism. And the sacred dances very much bring us that space.
Nice. Well, I mean, this is a good moment for you to then talk about whirling. Since I know I've very often heard you say that actually whirling comes from the beyond.
Yes. We cannot go to whirling. We cannot do whirling. Whirling comes to us. That's the beauty of whirling. That's why it's mystical. And whirling really belongs to the mystical dimension. So many of you may be familiar with whirling as in India, really whirling became popular and common knowledge, more or less common knowledge with the movie Khwaja Mere Khwaja, in which you see Hrithik Roshan as Akbar doing that whirling dervish dance, which is beautiful, and the song was really lovely. So whirling comes from the ancient Sufis. The ancient Sufis also originate from the gypsies of Rajasthan, the Balls of Bengal, the nomad tribes from Central Asia. So this is again pre-Islamic, and then it became kind of more formalized as a Sufi work. But really, if you see umrahs of Rajasthan and balls of Bengal, you know that whirling is not only limited to Islamic Sufi mysticism. It's much, much before that. It's ancient. I personally feel, from my personal experience in whirling, and not only being a whirler for now what? I started whirling almost 25, 26 years ago. And not only being a whirler myself, but also in teaching. When I have taught now at least more than 1,000, 1,500 people, I must have taught whirling, right? It's not very popular, it's niche work. So 1,500 doesn't sound like much, but in this niche work, to have worked with 1,500 people and see that the human design is universal, it's the same for everybody, that itself is quite significant. And what I realized was whirling is natural, which you said yourself in the beginning, that you realize that it is already there in your body. You're just reconnecting yourself to something that your body already knows. Whirling is a natural phenomenon. I think that whirling must have been the first, when humans discovered dance, they must have discovered it with turn. If you see all over the world, through ancient times, through all the different cultures, turning is the first thing that the body goes into. It's just a force that takes you. You want to turn. You want to celebrate. You want to exclaim. Something wonderful happened, and the body just moves into a turn. It's natural. It's our body. Because these are also whirling forces, are creative forces that form us. If you see the creative forces that form galaxies, they are whirling. You see the earth, it is turning, it is rotating, it is revolving. You see trees, you cut a tree, you see concentric circles, that gives you the understanding that these are whirling forces that are creating and shaping a tree. You see that in the design of a flower. You see that when a baby is coming out of the birth passage, the baby is actually twisting around 1.5 times before it's completely out. The forces that are moving the baby out of the birth passage are spiraling forces. Our DNA has got the helical design. You see in Tantra, you see in Kundalini, you see forces that move up through our body, the Ingla and Pingla, you see them as spiraling forces. There is this kind of a upward along the midline spiraling force that is moving through our spine. So naturally, this whirling, turning is a natural phenomenon in our body. We don't need to do it. We surrender to this force and whirling happens to us. I want to show you a really, really beautiful video. It's made by Shastro, the music video. The music in it is also composed and created by musician Shastro. I learned whirling because of Shastro. I was practicing whirling in the Osho commune. You know, I was already there. I had studied my sacred dances there, so I was spending a lot of time there. They would have evening and night whirling meditations that were open. Nobody was teaching anybody. It was just open. I would go there, try whirling, fall down many times. And this wonderful musician, he was specializing in Sufi music. Often he was playing live music during that time. He was traveling. I was part of the Sufi and whirling community there, just, you know, by accident, because I was practicing. And he happened to be leaving. He was at the gate. He was leaving, and he said, I just happened to be there. And he said, my bag is really heavy. He was a traveling gypsy, traveling musician. And he said, I have this heavy whirling skirt, which I don't think I'll use. I'm giving it to you, and I hope it will help you with your whirling. I've cut a new music CD, and he gave me that CD. This was in I think 95, 96. 1995, 96. And I was like, wow, wonderful. I ran to my room, put on the skirt, put on the music, and that music, it just turned me. I didn't have to work. The music turned me. And having the skirt on gave me boundaries. It showed me the kind of balance I need to keep in my body to let the skirt move like waves of the ocean, that the skirt has its own dance. So how the skirt was moving was informing me about the balance and alignment of my body. So today I say that my teachers of whirling were Shastra's music, which is called Whirling Flames, which I'm going to show you now, and the skirt that he gave me. These were my teachers. And Shastra then made a music video of this many years later when we reconnected again. And I told him the story of what his skirt and music did for me. He was so inspired. So he created a video, and he's shown whirling dervishes from all over the world. He's shown some of my whirling performances also. But what he's done is he's put the most beautiful Rumi poetry with it. So that's why we were recommending that you please see this presentation on your computer. You can read the beautiful Rumi poetry. You have this music that takes you to the beyond, and you see the beautiful whirlers, and it's a mystical experience. Okay, so I'm just going to play that now. Do you see the screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Hello again.
For a moment, I thought we are the only ones spellbound by it, but I thought you were also went mute for a second looking at it yourself.
Yes, I'm always spellbound. So before I finish, as to conclude this, and then if we have time, we can open for questions. Coming back to the human design, we have two currents of energy moving through our body at all given times, and these two currents of energy is the axis around which our body is formed. One is a vertical axis, which is the spine. You all are familiar with this. The spine is the fulcrum around which the body is created. It gives us an orientation of front, back, left, right, up, down. It gives us our sense of space within our body and around us. Now that's the vertical axis. There's the second current of energy that connects us from this body to the world around us. And that's the horizontal axis, which moves across our chest, and our arms become the facilitator for this axis. And that's why it is for the axis that connects us to the world around. We use our arms to embrace, to hug, to hold, to reach out, connect, to bring and to take away. This is a space that's used. Also, when we are moving into worship, into divinity, into gratitude, or in surrender, this is the space that comes into our awareness. So where the vertical current and horizontal current meet in the center, this is our heart space. And when we move into the bhakti or devotion or love, this is where we feel it. This is also where the organ our heart is. That's why it's called the heart space. And when we go into deep gratitude and surrender, our intelligence bows down to the wisdom of the heart. And that is what this gesture means. So with this, I thank you. I thank you, Naveen and Riti and Riva. Thank you for inviting me to share what has inspired me is my passion and my life. And thank you to everybody that I could share this with.
I mean, now would be a good time if we have the time to take questions from the audience.
Yes, Riti, I agree. No questions, no answers, right, Zia? That's what you said.
Yes, that's also possible. Actually, I wouldn't be surprised if all the questions have flown away. And everyone is in silence. I would take that as a compliment that the presentation did what it was meant to do, bring us into silence. So there's
Well,
no questions.
I've actually unmuted. I've asked everybody to unmute themselves, so you'll hear a lot of questions now for sure. Please, anybody has a question can go forward and ask your questions now. I definitely have 3 questions, but I will wait for others to ask first. Anybody would like to ask a question? Please unmute yourself and feel free.
Zia, this is Asim. I have one question. So, how does one start? So, you do a short workshop for people because this was really an unbelievable talk. So, how does one start? I could share something on that.
So I teach. I've been teaching for many years all over Bombay, all over India, and across the world also. You can get onto my website or just write to me on my email. It's realmsofdance@gmail.com. I'm just going to send this to Naveen. He can share this with all of you. And just write to me, say your interest, and then my office will keep you informed of whatever workshops are happening. In this lockdown, I managed to move the workshops online. It was an experiment and it worked. I was also shocked at how wonderfully it worked. So we've been doing whirling workshops with small groups, and we've been doing Gurdjieff open classes for anyone to jump in. The whirling requires a lot more support, individual, personal, but Gurdjieff is like their open classes. And people have been coming from all over India, Europe, America, because now it's online, space, distance, doesn't matter. So jump into whatever you can, and you'll find your way around it. So Naveen, I've sent you my email address. You can share with everybody.
Thank you.
We'll definitely do that. Anyone else? Please feel free to ask. Ramnaji, you have a question?
No. No, I would only say how fascinating it is. It's an introduction to a different world.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for that compliment. Well, I have a question to ask to everyone actually. Let's see how many of them will get this correct. Do you know what is the record number of whirlings done by anyone in the world? Come on, take a guess.
I think this is just statistics. The heart of this is in the spirituality.
You're right, sir, but I'm just imagining that person who did over 3,056 whirlings is a record holder by Nicole McLaren in Zurich. And it's an amazing record. 3,000 whirling. When I was a kid, I remember whirling on the Ringa Ringa Roses, and that's where I learned my whirling from.
All of us did.
But I have a few questions to ask you. Yeah, I saw in the performances the uh, the head was bent on one side, for all of them, and they were. It's like asking for the energies to flow. But is it because the head is bent to? Is the speed of an essence when you're doing a whirling, or is it just because you are kind of get that swift movement when you're whirling with your hand bent?
It's the momentum of the forces and the energy that shapes your body. So the thing is, in whirling, we're not holding a specific structure. Now there are different Sufi whirling schools that have very specific, like let's say specifications of how a person should whirl. Mevlevi who whirls on the left, Nakshbandi sometimes whirls on the right. Mevlevi will put the left hand up and open right hand down, and it's all symbolism. But if you just let yourself free without any rules about how to whirl and let the whirling take over, which you have seen in some of these where those whirlers, they've been whirling for years and years and they whirl together, their whirling also gets unified. They kind of synchronize automatically. So if you keep turning in one direction, the momentum of this force kind of shapes your body like this. And then this is what happens. And then also with your hands, it's like something in this area, literally, I'm saying it from my physical personal experience, something in this area just opens up so wide, so wide. It's so wide and free. I feel like the sky can come in here and the hands just open up. And then your head, you're just following the shape. The body has taken the shape as the momentum of the forces are moving you, and that's the shape that you see.
Wow. Interesting facts to learn about whirling today. In fact, Asima, I have an answer to your question, what you asked. How do you start learning? You get married, of course, you get to learn how to whirl when your wife makes you go around. Yeah?
So that takes my whirling to 15 years.
Ask Guinea, ask Guinea.
One,
President sir, ask your better half Guinea. She will give the proper reply to you after this meeting.
I'm sure she's going to do that. I'm sure. But I have another question to ask. Looking at Ratanji's attire today, in the video, I saw men wearing hats when they were whirling. In all the whirling, I saw men wearing hats. Is there any significance for the hats as well? Or is it to keep the body,
Yes.
um, like you
No,
said,
no,
the vertical and the horizontal balance?
no, it's like you look at the uniform of a soldier, an army general, an army officer. How the uniform is designed gives you information on the soldier's experience and their ranking, and where they have reached, what their achievements are with the badges and things. That's a function of a uniform, right? Now, there is so the same with Sufism. Different schools have different designs of how, like some wear coat, some wear jacket, some wear their whirling skirt with a belt, some have a hook, some have a scarf, some remove the skirt in the middle of the whirling, they have another skirt in underneath, put the skirt up. Some, those like the Egyptian whirlers may or may not wear hats. some wear hats. But there is a symbolism in all of it. So many different schools have different symbolisms, different stories of what it means for them, what the skirt means, the robe means, the jacket means that this is the outer body, the heart is inside. You'll see some of them, the dervishes remove the jacket, they fold it up, they put it away. It's a symbolism of now I'm moving away from this physical identification of the world. I'm moving into a deeper space, which is undifferentiated, which is my soul space, right? The same way the hat, if you see, is again a very universal thing. Jews and in Islam, in amongst the Jews, in Hinduism, in Sikhs, we all have a headgear, something to put on the head. Women will cover their head. This is universal everywhere. You go to a religious space, just feels like you want to cover your head. Now, this is the apex of our energy moving up, right? This is where we want to kind of contain it so that we're not dissipating it. This becomes the apex of the temple. If our human body is a temple, this is the apex. The head becomes the steeple of the temple, and we want to revere it, and that's the symbolism of the hat.
Wow, that's quite interesting to learn as well. I have another question actually from audience itself, from Dr. Meenal. Um, I didn't see her on the screen, but she's put it on the chat. She's asking, is there any difference between swirling and whirling, between Kathak and Sufism? If yes, what is the difference?
Absolutely. Like you already observed, you see all the whirlers like this with their head. Did you notice their eyes? There is no focus. They're not looking at anything outside. But in Kathak, in ballet, in all other classical dance forms where they have turning, they call spins or pirouettes or ghumars. In Odissi, they have ghumars. They're turning and the eye is spotting on a fixed point outside of themselves. So they turn and quickly they come back to the fixed point. That fixed point outside of them gives them the orientation of front and back and gives them the balance to turn in one place and stay there. So they are dependent on a fixed point outside of their body. That's in classical performance dance. When we go to sacred dance like Sufi whirling, the center, that fixed point that gives you stillness and balance, comes in. So my fixed point is fixed on the stillness inside me. Now I don't need to depend on the world outside to give me my balance and my orientation. I'm looking in. And that's why you'll see all whirlers like this, eyes half closed, half open, not looking outside, but they are looking inside. And they'll be like this, their head will go up, down, all of this. Nothing outside is needed for them to hold their balance. Their stillness is inside. And that's why with whirling, you cannot fake it. You cannot fake it that I'm meditating in whirling. If you're whirling, you are already in meditation, because if you are not in meditation, you can't whirl. So that's a very real, authentic experience. And the process of learning whirling just drops us into meditation. It's an active meditation, but the focus is on the stillness inside. From the stillness inside, the whirling emerges outside.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for answering that. Anybody else has a question? Fali, I'm surprised you're sitting quiet. Did you learn your whirling in the water or did you do it above the ground?
I am in a whirlwind right now myself. Trying to put it all together and see how best it can be.
Yes,
The only spiritual effect in my life, you know how it is. But
Elbow exercise, Pali, remember elbow exercise.
elbow exercise, exactly. That's the only way.
But the best part
I
is
have
after.
a question. I have a question.
Yeah.
Is there anything? Did you find a bit of spirituality in with your scuba diving? Because you know you're going into you're going underwater where you're not really supposed to be. So did that help in achieving what you've done at the moment?
So my whirling practice started before I got into scuba diving. So I was already with Rumi's work, already introduced to these mystical poem, and Kabir also said it, right? That you are not the drop, you are the ocean in the drop. And then coming from that space and whirling and opening into this vast divine consciousness with my little body, the sky coming into my heart, and all those, exhilarating out of this world experiences, I got into the ocean. And I was introduced to scuba diving. And there I was in this vast ocean underwater, not feeling my body. It was like the ocean moved through me and I disappeared. So that way, it was really very spiritual, deeply, deeply spiritual. Those experiences are like, um, I don't have words for it. And I remember one dive, we had gone on a whale snorkeling trip, and I saw these huge whales, like the sperm whales in Mauritius, who had taken us. And this mother whale comes up from the depths. It's as though from an abyss she's coming up. We're all snorkeling on the surface. And she comes up and her calf is next to her, the baby whale. And it's like there's no movement in their body. It's as though the ocean just presents these whales rising, and they just kind of drift away. The color of them is the same as the ocean, the light of the ripples on the surface reflecting on their body. And it was, for me, it was like, this is when I really saw in that cosmic, from cosmic consciousness, the whale is not separate from the ocean. Is there a difference between the whale and the ocean? There was not. The whales were transparent, translucent. They were extensions of the ocean. The ocean was an extension of the whale. That was a surreal experience. So definitely, the ocean brings many, many spiritual opportunities for us.
Amazing, absolutely amazing.
And you have had those experiences too, Fali.
Yes, I have. Yes, I have. And I must say I'm better off for it. It was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
The ocean is something else. It's very spiritual. It's something that has changed my life without a doubt. And thanks to you, I have to say, Mermaid Icon. Thank you, Naveen. That was a really nice. I'm so glad I joined this chat today. Thank you, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fali, for coming on, and happy birthday again. Have a really wonderful day.
Thank you so much.
Well, I don't see any more questions happening, so may I request our Rotarian Asim Gupta to please propose a vote of thanks to our speaker today, and to the guest, Riti, as well.
Thank you so much, President. So actually, Zia, the moment I read about the meeting, I was so intrigued. I spent a lot of time on the internet, and the more I was reading about you, about dance, I have been a great beneficiary of craniosacral therapy. My wife has spent 15 years in Odyssey, so there was so much to connect that I was really excited about this talk. And one thing I can share that I've always heard that art is the highest form of human expression, but your talk has given meaning to those words for me. Really, there was so much grace the way you explained grace and sacred being dance. I think there was so much grace in this entire talk that to me, it was a sacred talk. Thank you so much. I'm sure everyone of our friends and Rotary is also feeling the same. So on behalf of the club and on my personal front as well, thank you so much for taking out time and sharing about this space. Thank you so much. Over to you, Doctor. Over to you, President.
Thank you, Asim. Thank you very much. Well, I think it was a very intriguing and interesting session for all of us to see what the sacred dancing and whirling means. So thank you, Zia, for taking time out and taking us through the journey of Dreams of Dance. Thank you very much. Thank you, Riti. I don't know where she's. She's there. Thank you, Riti, for co-chairing this and for helping us learn and understand more about the whirling and the sacred dance. Thank you so much. With that, I think we have come towards the end of the session. In fact, I just want to tell you, Zia, we were live on YouTube and on Facebook as well while you were on the session. So we had some viewers on that social media as well. So thank you very much. And we had, of course, our friends from International Rotary Club to join us today. I'm afraid my friend from Jamaica, she had to leave because it's 2 a.m. over there and she took time to attend the entire session. She just left. So I've got Darren from UK. Darren, can we have a few words from you on how you found the entire session?
I found it a fascinating talk, really, really interesting. So obviously from the UK sort of culture, totally different side of things, but